Coach Drake had made it clear that the summer runs led by Jorge were optional. They weren't official practices. I figured that at least half a dozen other walk-on hopefuls would also show up. They would have found directions and arrived early, lowering my chances even before I had stepped out of the car. Much to my surprise, I saw only 3 men in attendance. Their faces instantly recognizable. Jorge, Eduardo, Dathan. Dear God. Shirtless, they stretched on the track. I walked up to them, extended my hand, and said, "Hey, I'm Matt McHugh, the guy from Iowa. I'm hoping to walk on this year." As they introduced themselves, I thought, I know who you guys are. I have tapes of your famous races on my archives. I've studied your training habits and memorized your personal records. Now, I was about to run with them, and it wasn't a bad first day. For the first time in 4 years, I didn't start my usual stretching regimen. Instead, I mirrored their every move. As I touched my toes, I glanced in their direction, curious as to what made them so fast. They wore the newest Nike Air Maxes, and I had Asics. Their washboard abs looked chiseled from stone. Their calves were impossibly slender, the veins nearly bursting out of the skin. I felt like a giant standing next to these real-life stick figures. "Ready?" Jorge asked as we finished stretching. "Yeah," I replied, tossing my shirt on the ground next to theirs. "How far you gotta go?" asked Jorge. 6 miles, I thought to myself. That was easy. I had my weekly volume precisely calculated. "We're going 12, Jorge said before I could answer. "Good," I replied. "Me too." Jorge led the four of us west along the Boulder Creek path, the cement trail that paralleled Boulder Creek and divided the town. When he accelerated the pace in the foothills, my lungs greedily sucked in the thin air. My legs felt as heavy as the boulders I barely managed to leap over. My arms boxed the breeze like those of a floundering lightweight on the ropes. Jorge, Ed, and Dathan, on the other hand, looked like they were coasting on autopilot. Screw the pain, I thought. I'm running with the buffaloes. But these weren't just any buffaloes. They were the best. I needed to hang tough and prove myself. We descended from the foothills and connected to a new concrete path. Disoriented, I had an additional incentive to keep up with the skinny trinity. I didn't want to get lost. Minutes later, we emerged from an underpass. Thankfully, I saw Pod's track a quarter-mile away. I devoted all my efforts to extracting one last surge of energy from my nearly depleted reserves. We flew past Pod's track as if it didn't exist. Apparently, stopping had never been an option. Jorge glanced at me and said, "We have to add another 10 minutes to get our 12 miles, but you can go back if you want." Every cell in my body wanted to scream, "I will!" I had already run more than 10 miles when I should have stopped at 6. By now, the drastic rise in elevation from the Iowa flatlands had caught up to me. It felt like someone was slowly tightening a noose around my neck. But I knew I had to keep going. Gamely, I latched onto their pack, desperately trying to shift the focus away from my innards, which felt like they were exploding from my midsection. We returned to Pod's 10 minutes later, having run 12 miles in 75 minutes, a merciless pace given the steep mountains and mile-high altitude. Unlike the other three who looked fresh and unruffled, I walked through the chain-link fence with salt-crusted shorts, a flushed face, and the taste of cotton lingering in my mouth. "You must be Matt McHugh." I recognized the forthright tone before I saw the trademark ponytail, the weathered demeanor, the white socks high past the ankles. His Nike dry-fit shirt tucked tightly into his gray nylon running shorts left me in no doubt. Coach Wetmore. He spoke like a man who had discovered his voice long ago. I always introduced myself with a strong, firm handshake, but the coach, leaning on a stretch of wooden railroad ties next to the track, kept his fingers intertwined on his lap. "You made it," he continued. "Not everyone does. Now don't try and hang with those three every day or you'll kill yourself." "Okay," I replied, incredulous that Wetmore had somehow remembered my name. If he had said instead, "Kill yourself by trying to hang with those three every day," I would have agreed to do so. In fact, I would have agreed to whatever he suggested. He then turned to Dathan and the Torres brothers, asking them how their summer training was coming along. I stood outside their huddle, imagining how I would describe the morning to my family. I could see their jaws drop at the mere mention of Coach Wetmore. Dathan, the Torres twins. I planned to skip the part, though, about getting lost and arriving late. For the rest of the summer, I will finish it off with this. Despite the constant bludgeoning from the likes of the Colorado crew, I committed to a hard 10 miles, 14 on Sunday, whenever I ran with the team over the summer. The other days of the week I ran on my own, The Colorado runners didn't take days off, so I followed their lead and gave up my one rest day a week. My off day now consisted of 5 miles. I consciously walked a fine line between breaking through the team and breaking down with an injury that might as well crush my dreams. The trade-off was worth it. Since Coach Wetmore controlled my destiny, I hoped to show him that I was willing to do whatever it took to become a Buffalo. Running my guts out seemed like the obvious first step. And so that's how it was. You know, all of a sudden you think you're hot stuff and you show up and these guys just bludgeon you to death on a run and you feel like the lowest man on the totem pole, which I was for the next 4 years. And this is where the journey really becomes important. Colorado becomes less about times, it becomes less about places, even on a national championship team it becomes less about victories. To me, that's where Coach Brown's knowledge and wisdom started seeping through on long runs, on moments when I was reflecting, thinking, what would Coach Brown do? How would he have reacted to this problem? How would he have fixed this? And that's where I come of age, and that's what this story is about. I'm not going to read too much more, else I'll give it away. Before I finish tonight, I just wanted to tell you a quick story. It's been incredible to see the kind of support this story has gotten. It's kind of, I think it's the little story that could. And we came back here to Iowa, and the media has been great. We've gotten play all over the place, from the TV to the radio to the newspaper. And I don't know if any of you saw this, and I have to just show you it. Sports Illustrated actually covered it this week, recommending it to their readers, calling it a moving meditation on the coach-athlete bond. It makes me very proud to see this in the pages of Sports Illustrated. It also makes my mother proud. The other day, telling a friend on the phone, she was saying, yeah, it's cool. I mean, see Matt's book. It's in the pages of Sports Illustrated. And then when she thought I was out of earshot, she also added, now if you could just pick up his socks, that would really help. So, you know, everyone's kind of getting in on this. We have, in true team fashion, the guy who does my website was coached by Coach Brown. Dave Gould, the guy who helped edit this story, his sons and daughter ran for Coach Brown. My parents also helped on it. Their children ran for Coach Brown. So it makes me proud to roll it out, being 26 years old, and to tell a story that I think is really important. And also those around me, they understand what it means to share the story about Coach Brown. I want to finish it up tonight with just one quick piece. You know, as an athlete, as I learned throughout writing this book, you think that you're the only person that's involved with the race because you're just so focused on the finish line. And that, of course, isn't the case. There's the coach who shows up every day with you. He is there in the early mornings. Coach Brown had early morning practices. He stays late at the track meets. And then Coach Brown, he was the bus driver. He drove us home afterwards. And perhaps my best memory of Coach Brown comes from my senior year of track. He said, you know, Matt, you're a senior, you've been here for 4 years. If you want to run wild, you can do so, but you have to do so on my terms. And that meant, his terms meant that every Saturday morning I would meet him. We'd go for 12 or 13 miles out into the Iowa countryside. So I'd just like to finish with this memory that I had while at college, and I think it really just shows how dedicated a guy like Coach Brown is. A month after Coach Brown had declared, I'll let you run wild, but you have to run wild on my terms, he and I journeyed through our final track season together. In a surprising twist, our Saturday morning workouts, where I ran and he rode his bike alongside, had become a welcome ritual for both of us. After arriving at Regina a few minutes before 9, I pulled my fleece headband over my ball cap. It looked goofy, but it was cold and raining. Coach Brown wouldn't care. A punctual the bus leaves on my watch man, he drove into the vacant parking lot a minute later and pulled his blue Schwinn from the back of his Jeep. Ready, he asked, amid the sheets of rain, the bike already dripping. His gray-blue eyes squinted against the drops, tiny lines stretching themselves out across his temples. Coach Brown wore a baby blue rain slicker and matching waterproof pants. He looked like Papa Smurf. Let's go, I replied. The billowy clouds sat low as a piercing rain spewed from them. The streets were slick and black, empty of traffic. The aroma of bacon leaked from the houses, seducing the inhabitants into hibernating during the seemingly endless Iowa winter. We separated when we hit the sidewalk less than 100 meters into the 12-mile run. I moved to the front. Coach Brown trailed a few steps behind. Neither of us uttered a word. With a companion to share the road, silence can be comforting. We left the city and traveled toward the Iowa countryside.